how you want to pray or what you want to pray about, you can just go to that gift and begin to allow God to speak through you, and He will intercede and do intercession for you. This is a very powerful prayer tool to have in your arsenal, since you're opening yourself up directly to the Holy Ghost and His ability to perfectly pray through you. We are actually joining forces with God when we pray in that heavenly language. So we're talking tonight about the tongues. I know I didn't give you these scriptures, but we're going to introduce them anyhow. Go to Acts chapter 2, verses 1 through 18.
And when the day of Pentecost was fully come, they were all with one accord in one place. And suddenly there came a sound from heaven as a rushing mighty wind, and it filled all the house where they were sitting. And there appeared unto them cloven tongues like as of fire, and it sat upon each of them. And they were all filled with the Holy Ghost, and began to speak with other tongues, as the Spirit gave them utterance.
Notice it's as the Spirit gives the utterance.
And there were dwelling at Jerusalem Jews, devout men, out of every nation under heaven. Now when this was noised abroad, the multitude came together and were confounded, because that every man heard them speak in his own language.
In his own language.
And they were all amazed and marveled, saying one to another, Behold, are not all these which speak Galileans?
These guys only understand and speak the language of Hebrew.
And how hear we every man in our own tongue, wherein we were born? Parthians and Medes.
Notice the countries.
And Elamites, and the dwellers of Mesopotamia, and in Judea, and Cappadocia, in Pontus, and Asia, Phrygia, and Pamphylia, in Egypt, and in the parts of Libya, about Cyrene, and the strangers of Rome, Jews and proselytes.
There was every language you can imagine. The Cretes, the
Arabians. We do hear them speak in our tongues
the wonderful works of God.
And they
heard them talking in tongues. They wasn't talking about what the next horse race was going to be.
That's right.
They wasn't talking about the things of this earth. They wasn't talking about what the lottery number was at the casino. But it says they were talking about the things of God, the wonderful works of God.
Yes, sir.
And they were amazed and were what?
In doubt.
Saying one to another, what is or how on earth is this happening? These guys only speak Hebrew, and they're speaking Arabic and Persian. We don't understand this. Next verse.
Others mocking said, These men are all full of new wine. They're drunk.
We had a alcoholic came to visit the church in Virginia, one of the churches I was preaching in, and he was very boisterous. The ushers got him to sit down in the back. Matter of fact, they didn't even let him get on a pew. They went and got a chair and put it against the sound booth, the back wall. And they was trying to get him just to quiet down, and he was drunk. And the power of God gave an altar call, and the power of God fell, and people was running, and people was shouting, and people was talking in tongues. And he got up and took off running with them. And he said, now this is what I'm more used to.
This is a party.
He said, man, I thought y'all were crazy, but y'all okay? He asked one of the ushers, he said, where's all the beer at? Where's the alcohol at?
Where's the dance floor?
I can imagine what these people must have thought.
That morning.
Matter of fact, they said, these men are drunk. And notice what Peter says when he steps out of the
It's only
balcony.
9 o'clock in
He
the
said, They are not drunken as you suppose.
It's 9 a.m. in the
Brother
morning.
Lee Stone King preached, the bar's open, step on up and have a drink.
Come get a drink.
Talking about the Holy Ghost, the new wine. He said you can drink all of this that you want and you won't wake up in the morning with a hangover. A hangover. He said you can, the bar's open, just step up and have a drink.
Come on,
I
Pastor.
finally got off the platform and got back there, and that old boy was looped up. He said, I tell you what, preacher, he said, I got a bunch of buddies that like to come over here. He said, man, y'all get with it.
Y'all get down.
And he did. He came back the next Sunday and brought some of his friends.
Some more of his drunk friends.
We had a young man whose name was Shay. Think about Tay, but his name was Shay. And Shay came in and he had left home to commit suicide and he had overdosed. Sitting on a pew, I saw his eyes roll back. All you could see was the light, and he began to convulse, and some of the men grabbed him and picked him up, and they hauled him out of the church, and they took him out into the back of the church and where the Family Life Center was. And there was 3 ladies in the church who were registered nurses, and they have a school. So one of the ladies that's a nurse at the school, she opened the room up and got oxygen. They put him on oxygen, and they called the ambulance, and she almost died from a drug overdose. Today, he's full of the Holy Ghost. He doesn't do drugs anymore.
He hates
He's
them.
a number 1 salesman at Kia dealership in Kingsport, Tennessee. God turned his life around. But Shay, I taught him a Bible study every Sunday morning before he got out of jail. I taught him a Bible study every Sunday morning at 6 o'clock.
Yes, sir.
His mom was at the church, and she said, I can't get
Sister
nobody to
Sarah.
go down there. I was afraid, but it is. Jails are dangerous. They really are.
That jail.
I was with a deputy out in our jail, and he was taking me to a room, and we passed a guy mopping, and that guy cleared his throat real good and spit all over that deputy. And the deputy grabbed me up by the arm, and he said, just keep walking, Pastor, just keep walking. And they was throwing stuff all over he poured the water all over the floor and threw the mop, broke the handle out of it. He said, just keep walking. I said, well, get me in a room that locks. He said, I'm going to put you in the attorney's room. I said, is there an exit? He said, no, only one way in and one way out. I said, well, that's okay. Just lock the door. For God's sake, don't let them in here to get me. They wasn't mad at me. They was mad at the deputy.
At the cop.
It's dangerous to go to the jail, and nobody wanted to go. And so I would go every Sunday morning and pray with that young man and teach him a Bible study. I left that morning, and he was so close. He was in stammering lips.
Yeah.
We were teaching over a telephone. He was behind a glass. And I couldn't get to him, and he couldn't get to me, and he just broke. And he was in that floor, and he was on that phone, and help me, Jesus, help me. I said, just pray. And the guards come there, and they thought he had an epileptic fit. They handcuffed him and hauled him out of there. And I went and saw the warden. I said, I need to get back there. He said, where he's at is a bad section. I can't. I said, he doesn't have a fit. I said, he had the Spirit of God upon him. He said, well, I've never seen God do that to anybody in my church. I said, well, you're at the wrong church. I said, because it happens. He said, that guy's eyes rolled back in his head. I said, that's because he was so hungry. His mother called me that evening at 4:30, and she said, Brother Perkins, you ain't gonna believe this. I went to see Tay, and she said, I went back there in that room, and she said, when they opened the door, he was laying there talking in tongues. In a jail. I'm telling you, tongues is a sign. It is the initial evidence that God has moved inside.
That's the truth.
It is. So tongues is a sign. It's edification of the believer in the church through interpretation.
My God, Jesus.
When you're just talking in tongues, that's just between you and God. But when you gift of tongues and you give a message from the Lord, God always will have an interpretation.
Exactly.
In Mark 16 and 17, and we're going to have to fix that to quit. Mark 16 verse 17, tongues is a sign. It is, it's a sign. Mark 16 and 17. Read that.
And these signs shall follow them that believe.
That believe. When people tell me, I'm a believer, I always ask them, have you ever spoken in tongues? Because this is a sign, these signs shall follow them that believe. In my name they shall cast out devils, and they shall what?
Speak with new tongues.
This is the sign of a true believer. It's not somebody that just accepted a right hand of fellowship. It's not somebody that signed a church robe and said, now I'm a believer in the First Pentecostal Church.
Come on now.
A true believer will talk in other tongues.
Hallelujah.
This is what Mark said.
Glory.
Let's compare the following. In Acts 2 and 4 it says they were all filled with the Holy Ghost and began to speak with other tongues as the Spirit gave them utterance. In verse 6 says, when this was noised abroad, the multitude came together and was confounded because that every man heard them speak in their own language. Verse 8 says, and how shall hear we every man in our own tongue wherein we were born? Verse 11 says, Greeks and Arabians, we do hear them speak in our tongue and the wonderful works of God. Tongues is a language, an earthly language that you have never learned. Brother Robert Filkins, who was a missionary to Africa, told us, he came here to preach several times, but he said, one of the greatest miracles that I have ever seen. He said, we was in the remote area of Africa, way back in there. He said, those people, precious people, had never seen nobody like this. He said, and a lady came to the altar after the preaching of the word, and she knelt at that altar, and she began to pray. And when God filled her with the Holy Ghost, she started speaking in English.
Perfect English.
He said, I knew everything she was saying.
Perfect.
He said, I called the missionary that took us there. He says, does this woman know English? He said, I'll have to ask the village chief. And he went to the chief and he asked him in their native language, says, does any of your people, are they able to speak in English? He said, no. They only spoke in Swahili. But this woman was praying, speaking in tongues. We have to understand that God gives us a earthly language to speak. One that you have never learned. And we know this is true because of Acts chapter 2.
Amen.
We're going to stop right there. We got about 3 minutes left.